Okay, you want to make sure once you catalyze your resin that you stir it very thoroughly, making sure that you scrape all the walls of the pen container and the bottom. You want to stir slowly so that you don't whip air into it, so that we don't have to set and let the material settle. This is going to be a vinyl ester layup, which is different than the epoxy layups. The basic differences are going to be in the veils that we're going to be able to use.
Veils be medium?
The veil is the lightest part of the material that we put into the laminate. We use a veil to try to help encapsulate resin around the Innegra fibers as we do the laminates. So the first ply down is going to be a veil. All right. This would be your veil. Now, once you've got your veil down, what you want to do is you'll want to try to work out any little bubbles or wrinkles that may be in the veil as you apply your resins to that. Push the resins up from the tool surface through the veil first. This is going to ensure that we get the cleanest, most possibly smooth surfaces as we can without any type of air being trapped on the surface, which would give us little voids. When you use a squeegee like this, I like to use a typical Bondo type spreader. They're readily available anywhere, but you can use a wide variety of spreaders. Most important thing is to make sure that the spreader is free of any types of debris or nicks or gouges that might grab the fabric that you're trying to squeegee out. So now we've got the first ply of veil down. Will come with our first ply of Innegra. If this were a glass layup, the first thing that you would see when you laid that down would be spots of the glass actually soaking up the resin from the bottom side. With Innegra, we're not going to see that. The only thing we can see is glass wicking up through the weave itself. So again, what we'll do is we'll apply a little bit of resin to the center, keep it minimized. And when you're squeegeeing, you want to try to squeegee in the same direction if you can once you get started, so that all the air entrapment continues to get pushed out. Don't want to put too much resin on as you go, because you want to be able to get through the laminate without excess resin all over the place. In this case, I'm just pushing extra resin around. You can see here that we have 100% of all of the fabric on the surface that we're molding that's saturated with resin and pushed through the weave. So now our second ply of Innegra will go down. This is a 2x2 twill. And again, the same thing is true. You won't be able to see what you would normally see with glass, which would be an immediate soaking. In this case, you're going to see resin coming through the weave, not making the material disappear.
Is there an order to the build? You put your veil down first, does it matter?
The veil goes first so that we can encapsulate the Innegra. Sure. And when we go back to abrade it for paint or whatever, we've got a glass surface to abrade opposed to the Innegra. Right. If we try to abrade just the Innegra, we could fuzz the surface and create more problems or difficulties in the actual prep for spray. So again, what we'll do is we'll try to push the resin around and get it as evenly spread as we possibly can without using an excess.
Russ, how come the Innegra doesn't actually absorb the resin?
But it's a hydrophobic fiber, and that means that it won't absorb any resin, it won't absorb any chemical. So we have to try to encapsulate it in order to trap it in the laminate. This particular resin system here, without getting into the make of the resin system itself, I've found to have phenomenal adhesion properties with the Innegra. So less resin in some cases can be achieved depending on the resin system that you select and how it's compatible with the Innegra that you use in your laminate. Now the last product we're going to do is the glass surface on the back. This will actually look a little bit different as we put it on. You'll be able to see I can wick a lot of the material up through here, and it'll actually start to turn a little transparent as we go.
So the Innegra doesn't turn transparent.
Does not turn transparent.
And why is it important in your resin calculations to factor in volume when using the Innegra?
Because a lot of times, in the old days, when we would do resin calculations for our materials, we would always do weight of the fabric, weight of the resin, to come up with the fiber volume fractions that we were looking for. With Innegra, that's not really possible because it doesn't absorb the resin like glass does. So what we have to do is take into consideration the volume of resin it takes to actually encapsulate the particular fabric style that you put onto your laminate, so that when you mix up your resin, you're not short and you're not over. And there you have it.
So the volume is calculated off sample size.
Off of
The sample size of Innegra.
Right, right. For example, when you do other types of laminates and you use a peel ply, or you're going to do an infusion and you use a flow media, you would have to calculate the volume of each of those materials as well. Obviously, the plastic green flow doesn't absorb any resin, so it's a volume of resin that you calculate.
Okay.
So for guys who are accustomed to doing infusions, who do their calculations prior to the infusion for the appropriate amount, will have absolutely no problem whatsoever in making the appropriate amount of resins for every laminate that they do with Innegra. Okay,
Now, how long should this sit and cure before doing any type of finishing?
that is 100% dependent on the resin system that you select, and that would be something that would be outlined in your material data sheet. We know that we've got our laminate completely saturated. We know that we've pushed all the air out of it. So what we want to try to do at this point is to create a surface that's going to be resin rich, so that they get as smooth a surface as they can, so that abrasion becomes minimal for whatever their top coat is going to be. And I have found that this works extraordinarily well with Innegra also. See, I'm just kind of brushing it on liberally, doing a nice flood coat on the very top surface of this. And when it dries, most of the brush marks will go ahead and flatten out. And you'll have a surface that's much easier to manage when you come back to abrade and clear coat. There you have it. That would be what you're looking for when you're doing a typical wet layup with the Innegra. You see that we're not flooded, we're not too resin rich. We have nice concentration of resin over and in the fiber. We're ready to go. As you can see, our surface is absolutely 100% porosity and void free, showing that you can make an Innegra laminate with either a vinyl ester or an epoxy resin and achieve outstanding results.